Beloslava has the white pieces, and she opens with pawn to d4. Both of them are, I think, 17 years old. I think, and are just, I think, like a month ago or something, turned 17, and Beloslava is 17 or 18. Not really sure. And you have to be under 20 to participate in this championship, although you have some very, very strong young players like Now Yulu, who is 13. But you've seen what happened in the previous game. So let's see what happens here. d4, we have knight to a6, c4, and now pawn to c5. As she needs a win, Candela goes for the Benoni defense. And how do you react to this? Of course, if your opponent is banking everything on the Benoni defense, you know that they are very well prepared for d5. So instead, Beloslava goes for the anti-Benoni. She transposes into the English, and this is sort of the anti-Benoni line. Knight f3, c captures, knight captures, and now standard moves here are e5, kicking away the knight, e6, maybe knight to c6, but she goes for pawn to b6. A fairly rare move, but it has been played before. For example, in 2010, Magnus Carlsen played it against Jon Woodley-Kammer, and Magnus lost the game. So you have to, be very, very careful here going for the development of the light square bishop so early on in the game. Knight to c3, and now bishop to b7. We have pawn to f3, limiting the power of the light square bishop, and now pawn to e6 first, and pawn to e4, d6, and bishop to eq. So we have pawn to a6. And now, okay, you could castle, but here we have bishop to e3, and now knight b to d7. We have castles and bishop to e7. So both of them just playing nice developing moves. We have rook to c1. And castles. We have pawn to a3, and here again it's a very well-known position, been reached many times. For example, Jan Iponish, he had this position against Guecamburu in the Russian team championship for men in 2015, and that game ended in a draw, where Kamsky continued with rook to c8 being the top engine move even today. But here we have queen to c7. She goes for a bit of a different approach. Candela wants to play rook to c8 and then remaneuver the queen over to b8. So okay, pawn to b4, always the strongest move. We have rook a to c8 and queen to b3 now. And now rook f to e8, and it is now as of move 14 that we have a completely new game. The rook on e8, although it looks a bit weird, what is it even doing there? Maybe you thought maybe rook to d8, but it's actually very well placed here. As if central breakthrough occurs, the e-file might open up, and then look at those bishops on the e-file. So the rook is very well placed here. You could also put the knight on f8 now and go to g6. You could also play bishop to f8 if needed to add additional support to the king. So it's a very nice move with rook f to d1, and now queen to b8, sort of finishing development here. King to h1, and now we have pawn to h5. With king to h1, this diagonal now becomes very important, and Candela goes for pawn to h5. She wants to play pawn to h4, pawn to h3, and open up the white king's position. We have bishop to f1, adding another defender here, and h4. Queen to a2, and now comes knight to e5. Now, you're probably wondering if h3 here is a good move. Sure, it can be played, but white can just block it with g3. She could also play g4, and she could also even capture a queen. Queen to a2 might be just signaling that that was her plan, because now she could place the queen to g2, put the rook on g1, and go after the black king. But also queen to a2 kind of says, okay, I want to play queen to f2, put pressure on this diagonal, put pressure on b6, go knight a4, really put pressure on that b6 pawn. Though also one of the reasons why the queen is on a2. But there's no need to rush things, as, you have to win with black if you want to become world champion. So, better just to build up the tension. We have knight to e5, and now Beloslava goes from knight to a4, preparing to put more pressure on that b6 pawn, and now bishop to d8, defending it. You could also defend it with bishop to a8, just so the queen defends, but is better for a minor piece to defend the pawn. And now bishop to g5. Now this is a very problematic move, as it attacks the h4 pawn, and it also attacks the knight. Now you might have some ideas of bishop captures, and then the bishop will not be able to capture since you're going to pick up the pawn here. So maybe Candela will have to mess up her pawn structure in front of the king. So while you could play something like knight f to d7, so the bishop defends and attacks, and let's say this gets traded off, and now the knight defends the b pawn. Candela says that now it's time to strike. She plays pawn to h3, and okay, how do you deal with this? One way is to play g captures on h3, and we're going to show it because it's actually a lot of fun. Now the whole position explodes. Pawn to b5 attacks the knight here. C captures on b5. A captures, rook captures on c8. Queen captures, and now bishop captures on b5, attacking the rook here. But now look at this. Knight captures on e4. And now, what do you play? Of course, you have to take the rook, or you have to take the bishop, or you have to take the knight. What do you play here? Believe it or not, the best move is bishop captures on d8, and now the idea was after bishop captures, queen captures, now f captures on e4, and bishop captures on e4, and you would get this position where Beloslava would be up a piece, but Candela would have a very, very strong attack against the white king. The white king's defenses have been completely destroyed. You have a knight and bishop in the attack. If you find a way to get your rook and queen into the attack, could be very nasty. On the other hand, if she defends well, then her two connected pass pawns on the queen side should be enough to decide the game. So it's extremely double-edged. She's not interested in that. She goes for bishop captures on f6 instead, trying to win the pawn on b6. Bishop captures, and now knight captures on b6. So she wins a pawn, attacks the rook here, rook c to d8, and now knight back to a4. So what's the price of the pawn? Well, you will get on the attacking, or rather on the defending side of this game. H captures and g2 with check. Bishop captures, and now again, you don't have to rush anything. Knight to g6, preparing to get the knight into the game. Queen to f2, it's very important to include the queen into defense. Also, you need to guard the g3 and h4 squares. Bishop to e5, and now pawn to h3. We have knight to e2 now. Queen to c7 first. Here, Candela wants to get her queen into the game, and it'd be great if you could get your queen all the way here. Plus, you had to play h3 as, the queen-bishop battery here. If d5 is played, would really make problems for the white king. So queen c7, we have knights to e2, and now knights to f4, offering the trade of knights, which Beloslava goes for. Knight captures, bishop captures, and now rook to c2. We have rook to f8, now preparing to open up the dfr for the rook. And look at this bishop area. This is absolutely magnificent. So knights to b2, it's also time to bring this knight back into the game. Pawn to f5 now, trying to open up the f file. Knights to d3, and f captures on e4. We have f captures on e4, even allowing some discoveries. Luckily, there aren't any. So pawn to e5 first. Now, when you first saw this position, I don't think you ever imagined that this pawn would march forward. Everyone was expecting this pawn to march forward. But now this pawn nicely defends the bishop here, and this bishop is just a monster. So queen to e2, and now we have bishop to h6. Now preparing to bring the rooks over to the f file. Rook to g1. Beloslava also wants to put pressure on the black king, and now bishop to c8, putting pressure on the h3 pawn. Pawn to c5, and now rook to f6, defending and also maybe preparing to double up here. C captures on d6, queen captures, and knight to c5. And this is now such a dangerous position you would not believe now. Here a bishop to f4 was played, which is objectively the best move, but just to show you what kind of a wild position it is. Let's say you play rook d to f8, you double up here, prepare to bring the queen to f2. Rook to c3, preparing rook to g3. Now look at this, rook f2, queen to h5, and now even rook captures on g2. Oh, you have to calculate all of this in order to actually decide for that bishop to f4 move there. And now if rook captures on g2, you will play rook to f1 with check. And now you have two options, rook to g1 and king h2. If you go rook to g1, then just captures, queen to d4 check will pick up the rook here. But after the king moves, queen captures on c3, you will face queen to e8 check, king to h7, and queen captures on c8 check. And now, after queen to f3 check, it will be a draw. Even with the dark square bishop, there is just no way to get it into the game. King to e1, and okay. If you allow bishop to f5 check, it will be a draw. And on the other hand, after rook to f1 check, if you don't block, you can play king to h2. But then comes bishop to f4 with check. You have to block with this rook, and now you're going to see a captures, and the king is actually very, very safe on g3. Because again, you are facing the same issues. This queen check repetition will prevent you from actually doing anything here. So while it is a very nice idea, remember, she has to win this game in order to win the championship. So she goes for bishop to f4, the absolute strongest move. Rook to c3, and now rook to h6, now piling up on that poor h3 pawn. And here we have rook to d3, and this is move 39. It's most certainly a critical position. Feel free to pause the video and try to figure out what you would play here for black while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on finding the strongest, objectively strongest move. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, congratulations on finding the practical strongest move, the one that Candela played here. She played queen captures on d3. And now it's time to really calculate, and the only way to defend this is to take with the queen and give the queen back. Then you would see rook captures on d3, knight captures, bishop captures on h3, and now you're going to play knight captures on f4, e captures and bishop captures on h3, rook captures king g2, and rook captures on a3. And you have this position where you are down a pawn in a rook endgame, but with perfect play, you will be able to defend this. It will be black playing for the win here. However, after this queen captures on d3 move, Beloslava played knight captures on d3, and here her position just falls apart entirely. Bishop captures on h3. So you can't really not capture, otherwise you're just gonna face, very, very nasty discoveries. So bishop captures on h3, rook captures on h3, king to g2, and now rook d captures on d3. And now, how do you play this? Okay, queen and rook versus two rooks, and the bishop, white, now should be able to play this, but not with the white king being so wide in the open. So queen to a2 with check, king to h8, and now queen to b1. But now it is very, very simple to convert this. Rook to c3, not rook to c3. Rook to h2 check first, and after king to f1, now comes rook to c3, threatening rook to c1 check to win the white queen, and you can't really move the white queen away from the back rank, otherwise rook to c1 will be checkmate. So she played a4, trying to get some counterplay with a pass pawn on the queen side, but there is no way to do that. Rook c1 check, queen captures, bishop captures, rook to g6, somehow trying to get back into the game, but now rook b2, putting the rook behind the pass pawn, rook to b6, and now bishop to d2, attacking the b4 pawn, b5, a captures and b5, a captures, and bishop to e3, and bishop to e3 is basically the final nail in the coffin. As now both the bishop and the rook control the b6 square, which is a dark square, and that means this pawn is never crossing it. So rook to b8 check was playing, king to h7, now king e1, as there's nothing better, and here pawn to g5, and he was in this position on move 53 that Beloslava Krasteva resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. You can't push the pawn to b6, it's covered by the bishop and by the rook, so you can move the rook and lose the pawn, or you can just, wait a few more moves until you are checkmated. Also, the queening square is covered by the bishop, so there is literally zero counterplay here.